In this video, we'll be reacting to Americans experiencing culture shocks in Ireland. I'm an American who's been traveling the world and living abroad for nearly 2 years. So not only will I be comparing Ireland to the USA, but I'll also be comparing Ireland to all the other places I've been to. To be honest, that kind of reminds me of the situation in the Netherlands. I spent most of my time abroad in the Netherlands, 14 months to be exact. And it really surprised me that even in the summer, it was actually fairly chilly. Even on the warm days, it seemed like at nighttime I would need a jacket. That's a completely foreign concept to me personally, having grown up in Texas. The concept of wearing a jacket at any time, in any context, outdoors, in the summer, is insane. But of course, everywhere in the world has different weather, and something that I've realized, clearly she doesn't really favor Ireland's weather that much, but as I've traveled more and more, I've kind of realized that most of the world doesn't really have objectively desirable weather. And when I say objectively, I'm talking about what probably 70% of people would find pleasant. So for example, the weather that you see in Valencia, Spain. That is what I think a lot of people would consider to be objectively pleasant weather. In Southern California, that's objectively pleasant weather. But pretty much everywhere else I've been, other than those two places that I just mentioned, has had pretty bad weather for most of the year. The Netherlands, it was raining all the time, and maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration. It rained probably 3 days a week. 3 days a week, but the thing is, the cloudiness was absolutely brutal. Coming from Texas, where I'm used to sunny weather, having cloud cover, having overcasts for honestly weeks at a time, going weeks at a time without really seeing direct sunlight, that can weigh on you, especially in the winter when the sun is going down at 4:30 p.m., which is also something that really blew my mind when I went to Europe, was seeing how early the sun goes down. But conversely, in the summer, even though they might not get quite as much sunlight as Texas does, and even though you still have those days like she is experiencing in Ireland where it's pretty chilly, I think the 50s and 60s would be something like maybe the teens in Celsius, which may be desirable to you, but if she's coming from somewhere like Texas, I understand why that would be a bit off-putting. But even though you have days like that, you also have absolutely gorgeous days where the weather is 25 degrees Celsius and it's completely blue skies and it's just amazing. But also, I do feel like in that part of the world, since air conditioning isn't particularly common, it is nice to have those cooler days, because 25 degrees doesn't really feel very warm, at least to me personally. I'm accustomed to 40 degrees and up in the summer. But 25 degrees feels pleasant unless you are in a room with that stuffy air. Because 25 inside feels completely different than 25 outside. Here in Malaysia, I would say the weather is honestly, in my personal opinion, worse than the weather in Ireland and the Netherlands. And I'm kind of grouping them together because they seem like they have very similar weather. Here, there are pretty much no seasons. I don't even think there's a rainy and dry season. It rains pretty much every day, I think year round, based on the minimal research I did. Pretty much every day, sometime in the afternoon, at the very least, we'll hear thunder. And I don't know if you can see the background, but it's not like it's super sunny or anything like that. And it is just as humid as you probably would imagine. So I'm saying this to say that having suboptimal weather conditions, that's not unique to Ireland. That's just the earth that we live on.
Guys, so I've officially been in Dublin for 3 months today. Yay! But with this in mind, I did want to make a video and kind of talk about 3 things I've really noticed and have liked about living here, and then 3 things that have kind of not been my favorite. So if you're thinking about moving to Ireland, specifically Dublin, or you've just been thinking about booking a trip, or you're just trying to catch up on what the heck I'm doing in my life, this video is for you. I'm going to start with the things I've liked. So number 1, I've been loving how lively of a city it is. There's so much to do right in the city center. Like you could go to several different pubs that have live music or museums. Just there's so much to do and people are always out and it's so fun. Number two, I've loved how friendly Irish people are. There's been several times that I've been on the train and then I'll turn and start talking to someone who's from Ireland and we have a great conversation and it's so fun. I also joined a Gaelic football team recently, which I have no idea how to play, but the girls have been so fun and they've been really encouraging with me trying to learn. And then number three, I love how beautiful Ireland is. It's so green here, and once you get outside the city, there's so much to see, whether it's the beaches, the mountains, or just like open fields that are fully green. It is so beautiful here. So, now for the things I don't like about living here. And you probably guessed number one, the weather. It's been the hardest thing for me. Honestly, I've been lucky and it hasn't been bad for the few months that I've been here, but on the weeks where it's been really rainy and cloudy, I can tell it's kind of brought my mood down and it's just made me unmotivated, especially like to go out and run, which is something I do a lot at home. But it does make me so much more grateful for when there is sunshine, and I do appreciate that. And I love to blow out my hair, but obviously that's not something I'm doing here. It's just so humid, so my hair's always like frizzy or just tries to curl again. I don't love my natural hair. I've been trying to embrace it, but honestly, like, I can't really do anything about it. Number two, it is pretty expensive here. I knew coming in that rent was going to be super expensive, and this is going to sound silly, but what I did not expect is for seafood to be so expensive. All I've wanted since I moved here was a sushi roll, but like a California roll is like 15 euro. I can't afford that, I'm poor. But that was especially surprising to me because Ireland's literally an island, so I didn't realize like seafood was going to be that expensive. It's kind of weird, but I mean, groceries are a really good price. I spend like 40 euro a week here, which in America, I was probably spending close to like 100 a week. And then number three, transportation here isn't the most ideal. So there are a lot of buses, a train system, the DART, but often depending on where you live or like the location you're trying to get to, it actually takes a really long time to use the public transportation. And even when you take it, sometimes the buses aren't even that reliable, like they just won't show up. On a similar note, I also didn't realize like how much more expensive it would be to fly to like different European countries. Everyone talks about how easy it is to get from country to country once you're inside a European country. So I just kind of thought it would be similar, like maybe a little bit more, but I didn't think it was going to be like actually like that much more to like maybe like book a flight to like France or something like that. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions about living in Ireland or just abroad. Like, I'd love to hear anything you have.
So I do have a question that I think you as the viewer can help me answer, which is, what exactly is a pub? Now, I know you might be internally cringing hearing me ask that question because it's probably obvious to you, but here's the thing, okay? If you're new to my channel, if you don't know anything about me, I'm an introvert. I don't go out. And when I say I don't go out, I don't mean, oh, I go out on special occasions. I mean, I don't go out. I never go to bars, I don't go to clubs, and I don't go to pubs. Evidently, because I don't even know what it is. What's the difference between a pub and a bar? Or is there a difference? Let me know in the comments what the difference is, because I hear people from Ireland and just that part of the world talk about pubs so often, but I never know what they're talking about. I just have a general idea that alcohol is involved, which not only am I an introvert, but I also don't drink. So I'm probably never going to go to a pub if it's what I'm envisioning in my head, but maybe I will go ahead and check one out whenever I go to Ireland just for the vibes. Now, as far as friendliness goes, that's something that I find really surprising because it actually contradicts a theory that I developed a while back about weather and people, the correlation between weather and people. Now, we already established earlier on that Ireland is a colder climate country with a lot of cloudy weather, a lot of rain, and just seems pretty gloomy weather-wise, climate-wise. My theory up to this point has been that those kinds of places typically have people that are also a lot colder. The people tend to be colder and they're less willing to strike up conversations with strangers, they're less outgoing, so on and so forth. Whereas warmer climate places, like let's say for example Spain or Greece, would have much more outgoing people. But Ireland seems to break this trend. And what I want to know is, why is that the case? Because it seems like Ireland has weather that's more similar to what you would find in, let's say, for example, Denmark or somewhere like that. I haven't been to Denmark to know exactly what their weather is like, but I assume the weather is more similar to Denmark than it is to Portugal, for example. So why are Irish people more similar to Portuguese people or Spanish people than they are to Danish people when it comes to striking up conversations with strangers and that sort of thing? Let me know in the comments what the historical reasons or cultural reasons are behind that. As far as the cost of living goes, I have heard that Ireland is a fairly expensive country, but it's also my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that the salaries are some of the highest in Europe. So I would think that would just offset the cost of living, kind of like in Switzerland, for example, where everything's more expensive, and maybe as a tourist or someone like me who does remote work would maybe find that a bit difficult to navigate. But if you're a local making a local salary, then it should all even out in the end. And oftentimes, high cost of living places that also have high salaries, you end up coming away ahead financially speaking, being in a place like that versus being in a place where the cost of living is really low, but the pay is really low as well.
I'm an American student studying abroad in Galway, Ireland, and here are another 3 things that would send Americans into a coma. I know I made some mistakes last time I made a video like this, but I received your advice and decided to do a bit more research before making this video. So let's get things started with number 1. Having a giant N on the front and back of your car. This N stands for novice, and you are required to have it on your car, front and back, for 2 whole years after you pass your driving test. There's an L used when you are learning how to drive as well. To my fellow Americans, we are extremely lucky that we do not have to drive around with a giant N or L on the back or front of our cars. Number 2, and this is for my fellow swimmers, meter pools. I know that outside of the US, this is the norm, but for those of us in the US, pools are in yards and not in meters. Swimming 25 yards is equal to 22.86 meters, so everything over here feels like it takes forever. Trust me when I say a 200 breast in meters is a whole different kind of pain. And lastly, number 3, spelling. Again, I know this is only in America, but there is a big difference when it comes to spelling. Words like color, humor, and behavior have a U in it. Many words that end in IZE in the US and an ISE here. The same is for YZE and YSE. Americans also add extra L's to their words. I was told by my classmates that some of my professors will take points off if I use American spelling, which to me is annoying, but very entertaining to my Irish friends.
So as far as the novice sticker situation goes, this person in the comments right here said the N is very helpful. It means people will give you a bit of a break on the roads because they know you're a new driver. While I agree in theory, my experience with this, granted my experience was in the US, was completely different. So just for context, I started taking driver's ed when I was 15 years old. So I would have been around 15 years old when this story happened. I believe this was my second time ever driving on an actual public road. So not in an empty parking lot with my dad or anything like that. I'm talking about I was on a public road and I was nervous. Okay, I was completely, utterly shaken just being behind the wheel, and I was driving really, really slow. And I don't know if you have this in Ireland as well, but whenever you are doing the driving practice for your driving school in the US, you'll have 2 steering wheels and 2 sets of brakes. One on the passenger side for the instructor and the one that you use to operate the vehicle. Now, the cars that we used were heavily marked with all kinds of signage saying student driver or driver is learning, things of that nature. Basically, not even just an N sticker, but the equivalent of a whole entire plethora of N stickers all over the car. It was very clearly obvious that I was a student driver. At that particular school, we had a rule that we weren't allowed to turn right on red because it was too dangerous. Now, it's interesting because this is something that we're just allowed to do in the US, but in driving school, we weren't allowed to do it. Kind of makes you wonder if that's something that people in the US should be doing, but I digress. I was waiting at the red light in the right lane waiting for the light to turn green. There were no cars coming, to be fair. And this car comes up behind me and starts honking profusely. And I don't really know what to do because I'm not allowed to turn. And I mean, honestly, he could have just gone around me if he was that preoccupied with making the right turn, even though it would have been breaking the law. There were no cars coming. But he was furious with me. And mind you, there are signs on the back of the car that literally say, this car does not turn right on red. Okay, it literally said that. And when the light turned green, I made my right turn. The car also made the right turn behind me. Then he speeds up, goes around me, and brake checks me. Okay, this man brake checked me. And I didn't know what brake checking was because I had never really driven before. I thought for a brief moment that he was trying to trap me so that we can get out of the car and fight. So I started to unbuckle my seatbelt. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I'm 15 years old. I don't know if I could take this guy, but we're going to find out. But thankfully, the driving instructor managed to hit the brakes in time because, again, I didn't know what brake checking was, so I wasn't really anticipating that, so I didn't hit the brakes at all. I would have just smacked right into him. But obviously, the guy wasn't trying to fight me. He just drove off. He was just trying to get me to rear end him. As far as the meter pools and the spelling, I feel like these are just common knowledge things. I mean, the US is kind of an outlier in these two regards, although I want to say that in the UK, they used yards as well. I could be wrong about that. I know for sure they used miles, but I think they used yards as well. I don't know if they used those in the pools. To be honest with you, I don't really do a whole lot of swimming because, well, I can't swim.